Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa came together to form a powerful economic group called Brics. Despite its less than flattering name, Brics holds significant influence, controlling 26.7% of the world's surface area, 41.5% of the global population, and a quarter of the world's economic output, with a massive combined GDP of $25 trillion. This makes them larger than both the USA and EU in every aspect, and they are only growing stronger. The 2023 BRICS Summit of Heads of State will be held in Johannesburg in August. The BRICS members have announced plans to enhance trade among themselves, and they have even discussed introducing a common currency that could challenge the dominance of the West over this influential group of trading nations. This trend raises concerns because these countries have strained political relationships with the rest of the world. Currently, Russia is engaged in a universally criticized war, while China openly expresses its desire to invade Taiwan and exert control. Economic cooperation has been a key deterrent to such conflicts in recent decades. If that fails, economic sanctions serve as a powerful tool to avoid direct armed conflicts between major nuclear powers, which many BRICS members are. If these countries form a strong trading bloc, or let's say a trading brick, it could not only cause the USA to lose out on significant global trade, which has been a crucial driver of its economic growth for the past century, but it could also eliminate one of the economic trade-offs for military aggression. So, what is the economic objective of the BRICS group? Does it pose a threat to countries outside the group? And ultimately, is it likely to succeed? These are some of the questions we will explore in our video. But please first subscribe to the channel for more updates. The BRICS economies weren't initially an official organization like NATO or the European Union. They were just a bunch of major developing nations grouped together by economists for convenience. You know, like when they talked about the tiger economies to refer to Asian countries like South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong that were growing like crazy. Economists do this kind of thing all the time. They call the US dollar the global reserve currency, but there's no official rule saying it has to be that way. Countries use other currencies for trade too, but the US dollar is just the most popular because it's easy to work with and everyone accepts it. Anyway, the BRICS group started as just the BRIC countries without South Africa. But then South Africa saw what was going on and thought, hey, that's actually a good idea, we should join them. The group got some real attention in the early 2000s, and in 2009 they had their first formal summit in Russia. They got together to talk about the global economic situation and how they could work together in the future. They were still feeling the effects of the 2008 financial crisis, so they were really focused on reforming financial institutions and stuff. A month later, they announced the need for a new stable global reserve currency. They didn't mention the US dollar directly, but they had been critical of it in the past. And then, in 2010, South Africa officially became a member, and they started having annual summits to discuss economic goals and plans. One of their big projects was to create the BRICS Bank, which is like the International Monetary Fund. It invests in developing countries to help them grow and become more involved in global trade. They want every country to benefit from this. Now, the BRICS Bank is a bit more exclusive compared to the IMF. Basically, every country can join the IMF except for Cuba, North Korea, Monaco, Vatican City, Liechtenstein, and Taiwan, because China won't let that happen. The BRICS nations also want to build their own undersea fiber optic cables to connect all their member countries directly. It's a challenge for Brazil since it's on the other side of the world, but they're up for it. And get this, they even want to have their own version of the Olympics called the BRICS Games. It's like the Olympics or Commonwealth Games, but only for BRICS members. They're trying to create their own everything: the Olympics, cables, IMF, and reserve currency. Plus, the BRICS are expected to contribute more than 50% of global GDP by 2030, with the expansion of the bloc almost certainly anticipating this. On top of that, China's gross domestic product grew from $6 trillion in 2010 to nearly $18 trillion in 2021. Besides that, India has been in for a jackpot. They have already surpassed the UK in the economic field, with its GDP growing from $1.7 trillion to $3.1 trillion in the last decade. Oh, and here's an interesting twist. More countries want to join the party. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Egypt, Bahrain, Argentina and Algeria have all applied for membership. And a bunch of other countries are interested too. Iran, Algeria and Argentina applied after the Russia invasion of Ukraine, which shows that two distinct economic teams are forming around the world. But let's be fair and ask why they want to do this. It's important to play devil's advocate and look at both sides of these global economic issues. In the broader picture of reducing dependency on the rest of the world, especially the West, one question arises. Why? Why do these countries want to distance themselves from everyone else? The obvious answer would be to shield themselves from sanctions and economic tools used by the West against their geopolitical ambitions. By trading among themselves, they can tap into the shared resources and manpower of a massive economic group. While it's important to consider this conclusion, it's not entirely fair. If the USA or Europe were reliant on using China's currency or reserve assets, they would likely seek alternatives too. Russia's experience of being cut off from global payment networks made other countries realize that their reserves could become useless if they upset one country. No responsible government wants to be caught unprepared. Similarly, the push for undersea cables linking Brics countries directly was driven by concerns over data inception by the US National Security Agency. The Brics Bank, or New Development Bank, serves as an alternative to the IMF and is controlled by Brics countries along with Bangladesh, Egypt, the UAE and Uruguay. While some may have reservations about these member countries, similar organizations targeting specific regions or cultural groups exist worldwide. Despite the Brics countries appearing as a formidable economic force, it's primarily driven by China. China's output surpasses that of all other countries in the group combined twice over. This makes the Brics a potentially challenging economic entity. In summary, the desire of these countries to form a separate bloc is not solely about evading consequences, but also about ensuring resilience, privacy, and alternatives to existing global systems. While the Brics may seem intimidating, it largely revolves around China's dominance. But the success of the Brics bloc raises several questions. With countries like China, Russia and India possessing vast resources, including nuclear capabilities and large populations, they hold significant potential. Additionally, China and India boast fast-growing economies and abundant human resources. However, there are challenges to consider. Russia faces sanctions due to its involvement in Ukraine, while China grapples with tensions surrounding Taiwan, and India finds itself caught in the US-China power play. These geopolitical factors can impact the cohesion and progress of the Brics group. Nevertheless, the potential of the Brics bloc to de-dollarize the global financial system is a major concern for the West. As one of the largest economies in the world, reducing dependency on the US dollar could reshape the balance of power. Ultimately, only time will reveal the true trajectory and success of the Brics bloc. Its ability to navigate geopolitical challenges, sustain economic growth, and challenge the dominance of the US dollar will determine its future impact. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel for more updates.